Welcome. What is up, Mixer? Welcome to This Week in the Mixer, episode 6, week 4 edition, live from Santee. I'm on the lookout for Dirty Chris, so hopefully he doesn't make an appearance unscheduled. We're going to talk about something first before we get into this week's matchups. I wanted to talk about the whole issue with contract holdouts and the reason behind why players go through them. We saw this week Earl Thomas suffer a broken leg after he came back from ending his holdout, hoping for a better contract. I believe he's 31, and the last year of his contract wanted to get some sort of extension before coming back. Didn't get the extension, came back and played. Now he's injured, broken leg. Second time in as many years that he's broken the same bone. So teams are going to be very reluctant to sign him now that he's had the same injury back-to-back years and due to his age. And subsequently, you see him flip off the sideline. People say he was flipping off Pete Carroll, or they're saying that's who he was flipping off. I'm not sure if that's exactly who he was flipping off. I think he was just kind of symbolically flipping off the situation. He was back against his will when he kind of knew better that something could happen. Anyway, so now he's done, and he's never going to see a big payday again. He may get some sort of he'll definitely, well, I think he'll get some sort of payday later on. Hopefully the Seahawks make it right, but lots of times we see these teams, they don't pay their veterans kind of what they've earned. First thing that comes to mind is the Chargers are repeat offenders of this. They did it with Rodney Harrison. They did this with Junior Seau. Now they're doing it with Antonio Gates. These guys put their bodies on the line for years and make probably when they're under contract, they make fair market value, but leading up to earning those contracts, they were basically playing at a discount, and they're loyal to the team, and lots of these guys are playing while they're injured during those contracts, going out there, giving it their best, and they're not rewarded when it comes to the end. They're just a depreciated asset, which makes sense from the business side. It's not ethically fair, but when has any business really been 100% ethically fair? These owners, these GMs, they just want to do whatever they can to put the best team that they can out there, and if they're giving out money as a courtesy to these players, then they're putting themselves at a disadvantage. So it's a balancing act, and it sucks for the players. I feel the worst for the players because the owners are billionaires. The GMs aren't out there putting their bodies on the line. Sure, they may be putting their jobs out on the line by either offering an extension or not offering an extension to these players, but they're not physically risking their bodies in their main career. They're not putting their career completely at risk. These GMs, even if they get out of football, they can go work in other businesses and be just as successful, if not even more so. I wouldn't be surprised if these GMs if they leave football, they work at some other business and make even more money. They may not have the same prestige, but it's not like we're the players where it's their only way. It's the only thing that they've trained for their whole lives. It's their entire livelihood. It's not like they can quit. And I mean, I guess they can quit and open up a car lot or some car washes if they invest their money well, but it's a huge leap going from running around on the football field to running a business or some other career path from what these GMs do. And it just makes me wish that these players could start monetizing their skills earlier, because I've been watching Last Chance U lately, and you watch these guys and these junior college, these JUCO football programs seem to be multi-million-dollar programs where these stadiums are full of people. There's all kinds of news coverage. There's obviously interest where there's documentaries on Netflix about these players that are bringing in millions of dollars. They have pimped out helmets and jerseys, fresh new jerseys for every game. Players are being told by the coaches they can only wear Adidas when they're on camera, and they're eating top ramen and hot pockets, and living in tiny little dorms, not driving cars or walking to class, and they're playing through injuries just because they know if they're not out on the field, they're going to miss their opportunities. One guy in the first season had a big game, and then the next day it was against a pretty good team. He brought the team back, the quarterback, and then the next day he got called from Auburn, and boom, he's back to a Division I school as a QB. If he was injured, he would have missed the opportunity. And the season I'm watching right now, there's a running back, high ankle sprain. You can tell he's in a lot of pain anytime he gets tackled, and he's trying to push through it, but it's obviously not the right move, and he's still out there because he knows it might be his last chance to make a name for himself, to get one payday, even to get on a D1 school, to get drafted as like a fifth rounder, and make a practice squad. That's like this guy's best case scenario, but he's playing for a school and he's probably the star athlete that's in a program that's making millions of dollars, and he's not seeing any of it. So it's tough to see when these players like Le'Veon and get questioned, have their heart questioned, and get criticized for not being a team player or something, when when it comes down to it, it's a job. They're doing it as a career, and it's their only career option because they've set aside school, they set aside business, they've set aside other pursuits to make this their one goal. And if it's the only chance they get, and that's the best, and they feel it's the best option, then in my opinion, more power to them. So those are just kind of my thoughts on that. With that being said, it's time to get into the week 4 recaps. We're at the quarter mark for the season already. Keep in mind, it's a 16-week season this year, including the playoffs. So regular season would put it through week 13. So we are about almost a third of the way through the regular season. After this week, we'll be more than a third of the way through the regular season. So it seems like the season just started, but we're getting into it quick. So it is time to make moves. It is time to get some wins. Let's see how it went down in week 4. First off, we'll go with me versus Matt. Game of the week, closest game of week 4. Matt, he had Deshaun Watson go for 375 yards, 2 touchdowns, 34 points. He's looking like his old self from last year. Had Golden Tate continue to be a target monster. He got 8 receptions, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns, 34 points as well. I had Tyler Boyd continues to emerge as one of the breakout receivers in the league. He had 11 catches, 100 yards, no touchdowns, but 22 points. And then Calvin Ridley just keeps scoring. Seems like Julio Jones carries him down the field. Calvin Ridley puts it in the end zone. He had 4 catches for 54 yards, but 2 touchdowns, 21 points, 6 touchdowns on the season. I believe that's more than Julio scored in the last 2 seasons. And Calvin's done it in basically 3 games. He was active in the first game, but I don't think he got a single catch and didn't run that many routes. So we're going to not count that for my narrative. The difference maker in this game came down to some of Matt's starting decisions. Fournette was a late scratch. So, well, actually he wasn't a late scratch. He got hurt. He was late active. And then he got hurt, re-injured himself halfway through the game. His backup running backs all his other options did pretty well. I think his lowest scoring running back scored 15 points. He also started Ryan Fitzpatrick over Russell Wilson. The really costly thing was starting Fournette over any of those other running back options. If he would have went with any one of those, he would have won by a sizable margin. He ends up leaving 33 points on the bench. I was still down heading into Monday night. Maybe that was Sunday night. The Sunday night game when Baltimore played. Flacco put up 26 points, had 363 yards, 2 touchdowns. The champ goes down, drops 2-2. I move up to 2-2. Matt's title defense is on the hot seat. He's a middling team, as well as myself. Both looking to make moves. We'll see where it goes from there. Matt will look to bounce back next week. Hopefully we'll be able to carry some momentum against the other member who was in the championship last year with Jake in week 5. Next matchup, we have Jake versus the shit pumper Sean. And that shit pumper is just going to keep pumping. Kamara does it again. 41 points. Routine, ho-hum, yawn. 19 carries, 134 yards, 3 touchdowns on the ground. Added 5 receptions for 47. Just another average week for the best running back in the game right now. Jared Goff goes crazy on Thursday night. 465 yards, 5 touchdowns. He had the Goff Robert Woods stack. So Woods caught 5 receptions, 101 yards, and a TD. 22 points out of Woods for Sean. Jake had a pretty good week as well. Unfortunate that he was facing Sean. Zeke got 25 carries, 152 yards. Added on 4 receptions for 88 yards and a touchdown. 34 points out of Zeke for Jake. Cousins went over 400 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sterling Shepard got 10 receptions, 77 yards, and a touchdown for 25 points. Pretty good numbers out of Jake's top performers. He makes it entertaining, but Sean, aka the enema of the mixer, keeps rolling. Sean moves to 4-0. Jake 1-3, falling 161 to 194 to Sean. And I'm just going to take this moment right now to call out Sean for what he is. He shows up at the draft. Well, on draft day, he says he's going to prep for the draft. Spends maybe 20 to 30 minutes in draft prep. Drafts out of town. I think he was on, I can't even remember if he was on Skype or video call for the first round or 2. But out of town drafts, and has the audacity to name his team. Wait, he's on what team now? And then week 1, just post high score. Week 2, high score. Week 3, high score. Week 4, looks like he got beat by Jess by 1 point. At least that's how I have it here. I'm not sure if there was score correction or if I typed it in wrong. Either way, pretty much high score. He leads the entire league by over 100 points right now. He's averaging 190 points a week. That whole act, I watch Better Call Saul, Sean. I know a con man lawyer when I see one. I'm not buying your act, man. I'm not buying your Mr. Nice Guy routine. Oh shucks. Today's our draft. Oh, I better spend 20 minutes researching and then just draft the God Mode team. Did you buy Game Shark? Is there a Game Shark for fantasy football that I don't know about? Because I'm on the internet a lot. And I've never seen it. So, Sean, the Matchstick Man, I don't buy it. I'm on to you. You're a phony. You're a fraud. You're a bigger fraud than this hurricane. I'm not letting my guard down to this guy again in the draft room, because it's the second time he's done this, where he started out like gangbusters and just whooped all of our asses. It's not happening again. It's not happening again. We got to do our part. Make sure this doesn't happen. I'm not buying the act. Mixer, this is a call to arms. We got to take down Sean. He cannot win this Dirk. He cannot do this to us in draft day again. We got to do something about this, because he's embarrassing us. He's embarrassing us all, who spend way too much time on draft prep to get destroyed by an out-of-towner, a Los Angelino. That being said, congrats, man. You got a hell of a team. Someone's got to get you. All right. Moving on. Next we got Mason versus Jeff. So, Mason had Andrew Luck go for 464 yards and 4 touchdowns. He seems to be slinging the ball around. I believe he's throwing the ball a little deeper now. He threw his own Hail Mary this week, so Jacoby Brissett won't get those halftime Hail Marys anymore, or so it seems. So clearly his arm is still getting better week by week. That it'll be a good sign for Mason. Julio Jones continues to do what he does. Had 9 receptions for 173 yards. No touchdowns. Thank you, Julio. 27 points. Julio Jones is right now on pace for 2,008 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns on the year. That'd be a hell of a stat. Maybe we'll start calling him Jason DeGrom. Stephon Diggs for Mason got 11 catches, 123 yards, no touchdowns, 24 points. For Jeff, George Kittle filled in nicely for Luke Wilson. He got 6 receptions, 125 yards, I think including an 80-plus yard touchdown against the Chargers, which is pretty impressive. 25 points for Kittle. Jeff was down 150. He was doubled up by Mason, which nobody wants to get doubled up by Mason. 150 to 75. Mason was heard on Monday night in the PUBG chat room saying his goal was to finish with a double score of Jeff, so he can just rub it in for eternity. It wasn't to be. Final score ends up being 162 to 110. Mason did have Mitchell Trubisky on the bench, who outscored Drew Brees by 36. So Mason left 36 points on the bench and still put up 162 points. Pretty impressive. Mason outscores Jeff by 52 points ultimately, taking a titty adventure of his own, moving to 4-0. The only other team unbeaten. Jeff drops to 2-2 in a crowded mid-pack. Next up, we have Zach versus Anthony. Will Anthony finally get a win? This is the battle for the best team pick bragging rights. Anthony had Gurley, get 4 receptions, 73 yards, and a touchdown. He added 17 carries for 83 yards, 25 points, solid production out of your RB1. That's what you want to see. He got 27 points from Blake Bortles, Blake gonna Blake, and 32 from Matt Ryan, who's been on fire of late after that sad-looking week 1. He got an impressive 23 points from the Packers defense against the Bills, so Josh Allen comes back down to earth like we all knew he would. For Zach, had some good production out of some players. Hopkins got 10 receptions, 169 yards, and a touchdown. Dalvin Cook and O.J. Howard had a no-show, though, basically doing nothing. I think Dalvin Cook re-injured, and I know O.J. Howard got injured. Anthony ends up rock-bottoming the nation, 162 to 134. Both teams at 1-3. Anthony finally gets his first win of the season. Well-deserved. I think the next one's coming in short order. Anthony's moving to mid-pack. He's looking good on points. But that can always change in a heartbeat. All it takes is 1 or 2 injuries, which, thus far, I'm not going to put that jinx on anybody, as a matter of fact. Let's just hope last season's bug does not find its way on Anthony's team this year. That's what I'm going to say. Because that shit is just not good. Not good for anybody. Last up, the blowout of the week. Jess versus Danny. Jess her team exploded this week. She had 4 players go for over 25 points. Melvin Gordon went for over 100 rushing yards and a touchdown. Adam Thielen went for over 135 receiving yards and a touchdown in that catch-up game against the Rams. Cooper Kupp went crazy on Thursday Night Football. 162 yards, 2 touchdowns, and look at little Amari Cooper. What did he do this week? 8 receptions, 128 yards, and a touchdown. Undertaker rising. .gif. I don't know why Amari Cooper doesn't do this every week. He's talented as hell. He's big. He's not the fastest receiver. I guess his biggest issue is he can't make contested catches, which in my basic rudimentary football analyst mind, you would think bigger receivers would be able to create that separation naturally because of their body. Obviously that's oversimplifying it. It's not that easy, but when he has good corners on him, Amari Cooper disappears. And I think it's a mental thing as well. When he's facing that tougher opposition, then he has weeks like this where he can bust out, have a good day. Hopefully for Jess, there's more day like this coming. Hopefully for me, Seth Roberts gets some more touchdowns and I win this water bet because that would be great. But anyway, good production out of. I legit think there might be dirty Chris, right? I don't know what he looks like, but there's some dude who looks like he's about mid-30s, curly hair, goatee, on a bike, like randomly riding around talking to people. Maybe we'll get a sighting. Like, for real. Anyway. Alright. Where was I? Apologies. Sorry. There's a celebrity in the area. / a America's Most Wanted guy. Alright. Yeah, so Amari Cooper goes off. Not much to say for Danny. A week to forget. It's kind of summed up by what happened in the afternoon games. Chris Carson was the late scratch. Danny had no options, so he had to leave in an inactive Chris Carson. So Chris Carson, now known as the Bagel Man, gives Danny a 0 in that slot. Wouldn't have made much of a difference. Tannehill falls back down to earth. He scores 1 better than an inactive Chris Carson. So for those who can't do math like Mason, that's 1 point. He got 1 point. He got 100 yards passing on the day. 2 turnovers. He had a fumble and an interception against the Patriots. Patriots remember who they are as well. Somewhat of a bright spot for Danny. David Johnson does something. He gets 22 carries, 71 yards, and a touchdown, 18 points. It's not anything that you'd want out of the number 1 pick, but it's something. Real quick. Is that dirty, Chris? Anyway, we'll see if maybe somebody can recognize him from that far away. I can't zoom in. But yeah, anyway, that's who we're talking about. Maybe we'll add a poll if that was dirty, Chris, or not. Like Bigfoot. All right, so we're wrapping up here. So, David Johnson does something. Danny's team doesn't do much, though. Jess shows that she's a contender. Her team has potential. Dropping, if not high score, very close to high score. Just beating Danny by the century mark. 195 to 94. If it weren't for the blowout last week that Sean dropped, might be the biggest blowout in Mixer history. Congrats to Jess. She's moved to 2-2, joining that mid-pack field. Danny drops to 1-3. That wraps up the Week 4 matchups. Where are you guys at? How are you feeling about your team? I think there's a lot of us who are on the fence. It's going to be a tough playoff hunt. Right now we got Sean, Mason, look like they're locking up a spot. We got Anthony looking like he's probably going to get one of the point spots. He's in the tough division, I believe, with Sean and Mason. So he's got a tough hill to climb. They're both 4-0. He's 1-3. So you got to figure if he keeps up his points slots, he's going to slot in as one of those points position teams. So that leaves the division winner in the other division, second place, and one other. I think, yeah, and one other points player. So it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. You got a lot of teams at 2-2. A few at 1-3, all about at the same total points right now. So it's time to make moves. You see, these waivers was today. A lot of people throwing down a lot of money on Fab on these players. There's only a few weeks left. If you see guys on waivers, you got to start spending money. This is free advice, but the more money you spend early, I know the instinct is you want to save money because later, what if there's a game changer? The thing is, if it's later, you're only going to get them for like 2 or 3 games. If there's a guy who's maybe not a game changer but can make a difference in like 4 or 5 games and maybe get you 3 close wins, then they're just as important as a guy who can be a difference maker for 2 games that might only get you 1 win, if that makes any sense. Because there's only 8 regular season games left, so you're probably gonna need like 5 wins out of that to get in the playoffs, and even that's not a guarantee. So it's really important each week. It goes without saying, but we played a 16 weeks, so the regular season is going to end a week earlier than it used to. So just keep that in mind. Make those trade offers. Shout out to Jeff. I think that was a fair trade. I hope James White works out for you. I hope Callaway emerges. He's getting a lot of targets. I know you got Baker, so maybe that stack will do something for you. James White seems to be one of the only reliable catching options in that Patriot offense right now. So I'm sure he's going to keep putting up some numbers as a high RB2. Hopefully Jordan Howard can be a 1,000-yard rusher again. Hopefully they involve him a little more in the passing game. once the weather cools down. That's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, guys, just keep making those moves. Be bold with your start-sit decisions. Get those wins. Stack those dubs. Stay away from those losses. Just put up points. Make stuff happen. I think we're gonna have a hell of a playoff run this year, even though we're down to 10 teams this season. What do we have for week 5? The matchups. I'm taking on Jake. Should be a good one. We got Zach versus Jeff. Danny versus Anthony. We got the Gardella Bowl. Jess versus Matt. And Mason versus Sean. So a lot of even matchups this week. Jess versus Matt should be good for obvious reasons. Mason versus Sean, the 2 4-0 teams. Who's going to be the last one left? Undefeated. Spoiler alert, it's going to be Sean. Me versus Jake should be a good one. We're both pretty evenly matched. Zach versus Jeff. Both teams have had their ups and downs. It's a matter of who's going to be on this week. Danny versus Anthony. Danny's hot and cold. Will it be a hot week? Will it be a cold week? Anthony seems to be snake bitten. Will he catch Danny when he's hot? Put up a bunch of points and then go down again? It's going to be a fun week, week 5. Almost forgot again. Mr. Irrelevant this week. Luke Wilson keeps on chugging. Little guy. Got a catch. 6 yards. 1 PPR point. Keep at it, man. Keep at it. We're pulling for you. We're pulling for you every week. You're going to get a touchdown. I'm going to feel it. I'm going to call it right now. Bold prediction. Luke Wilson, week 5, touchdown. 3 receptions. Wait, hold up. 3 receptions, 27 yards, and a touchdown. Close to 10 PPR points. We'll say 9. 9 PPR points for Luke Wilson against those Packers. Pulling for you, dude. Pulling for you, dude. We'll check in with Amari Cooper. What will he do? Who you got? Luke Wilson, Amari Cooper is going to score more points next week. That'll be interesting. And we're probably going to talk about the Connor fight. I think he's going to lose. But it's going to be entertaining no matter what. Hopefully Connor says some crazy shit. Always makes it good. Hopefully I get to watch it. Got the suegro, the father-in-law, soon-to-be father-in-law, eventually be father-in-law. Got his birthday that night. We're going to try to get it done early, the dinner, and watch the fight somewhere. Even if it's on Reddit, on a legal fight stream. Don't tell the internet, even though I'm posting this on YouTube. But either way, we'll get to see the highlights on Twitter somehow. So we'll talk about that. Somehow we'll make it about Bones Jones to appease Mason. And yeah, that's week 4. We're at week 5. Getting there. It's October. Best week in sports, or best month in sports. It's make or break time. Some teams are going to be stuck with those 2 wins after October's done. Some teams might go on a run. Some teams are going to be at 500. So, where are you going to be? Make the moves to make it happen. To be where you want to be. Let's get it, guys. Catch you next week.